Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to break down complex sources into the key takeaways for you. And today, we're tackling a really famous, but also quite difficult passage, the fall of King David.
It's a story many people know or think they know, but the details, when you really look at them in Texas Samuel 11, are devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to remember who David is at this point. He's not just a king, he's the king, the giant slayer, the poet, the man anointed by God.
He's really reached the summit. The source material makes it clear he'd established justice and equity. He'd received this incredible promise, this covenant, that his throne would last forever.
Everything he touched seemed to, turn to gold. He was riding high.
That's right. And that peak, that combination of immense success and unchecked power, well, that's where it turns into this toxic cocktail we're going to explore. It leads him to completely misuse the authority he has.
And the way the story is told is interesting too, isn't it? Commentators point out how the pacing changes here.
It definitely slows down. Compared to the chapters before it, this section is much longer, more detailed. It's not rushing through the events.
It feels deliberate.
Very deliberate. One analysis describes it perfectly, I think. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. Every choice, every small step David takes is laid out for us to see this powerful figure just crumble morally.
Okay, let's get into it then. You'd expect maybe a big political mistake or a huge battle loss to be the turning point. But the text points to something much smaller, almost mundane. Where does this all begin?
Well, it's right there in the very first verse of chapter 11. It says, "In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab. But David remained at Jerusalem."
He stayed home.
He stayed home.
When he should have been out leading his troops, doing his job, essentially.
Exactly. He'd become successful enough, apparently, that he felt he could delegate the hard parts, the dangerous parts, and just stay comfortable back in the palace.
And that decision, just staying behind,
Right.
that's the crack where everything starts to go wrong.
That's what the analysis suggests, yes. That choice to isolate himself, to step away from his duty, his man, it creates the conditions for failure. Isolation, maybe boredom, maybe just being alone with his thoughts. It becomes a kind of petri dish for unwanted behavior.
Mm-hmm. And maybe a sense of entitlement creeping in, like all his past wins made him think the rules didn't apply anymore.
It certainly seems possible. That success might have removed the guardrails, fostered this thought of, I'm the king, I can do whatever I want.
It's a real warning, isn't it, about how success itself can become a vulnerability if you're not careful. The sources really emphasize transparency here, being in community, as the antidote to that isolation.
Yes, community is key. We all know that feeling, right? So when I say, hey, how are you really doing? And the reflex is just,
Yeah, fine.
I'm good.
Good, exactly.
Really
We resist
crap.
being truly vulnerable, even when we're struggling. But that secrecy, that surface level answer, that's what allows these hidden issues to grow.
It fuels the fire. Precisely. Secret struggles love the dark. They thrive when we disconnect from real accountability. And I'd ask you, listening right now, where are you maybe resisting that vulnerability? Where are you isolating instead of connecting? Because that resistance, that's often the first slip.
So isolation, entitlement, that's the setup. Once he's in that state, how quickly does the actual transgression happen?
Oh, it's fast. Disturbingly fast. The text says, late one afternoon, he gets up, he's walking on the palace roof.
Sees a woman bathing, Bathsheba.
Yes. He sees her, he asks who she is, he sends messengers, he took her, and then it says he lay with her. It's just these stark, simple verbs.
What's really striking, looking at the analysis, is the total lack of any described internal struggle. You think of temptation narratives, there's usually some tension, some fight.
Like that song in Hamilton, Say No to This, where Hamilton is clearly wrestling with himself.
Exactly. We don't get any of that with David here. It's like a switch flips and there's no resistance mentioned at all.
Zero resistance described. And that lack of struggle really points towards a conscious misuse of his power. This brings us to a really helpful definition from therapist Diane Langberg about power abuse.
Okay, what's that?
She says the abuse of power typically involves three things. First, the deception of self telling yourself it's okay. Second, the deception of others manipulating the situation. And third, the coercion of others based on those deceptions.
That's very clear. Deception of self, deception of others, coercion.
And you see all three here with David.
But wait, he is the king. Doesn't he technically have the authority to summon anyone? How do we distinguish his legitimate power from this coercive abuse the sources talk about?
It comes down to intent and outcome, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's not summoning Bathsheba for official state business or counsel.
No, clearly not.
He's demanding her presence purely for his own gratification. He's deceiving himself, maybe thinking his kingship makes this okay. He's deceiving others by using royal messengers for something illicit, and he's absolutely using his authority to coerce her. She's just called the woman. Her own voice, her agency is almost entirely erased in this part of the story.
Until she sends that message. Her only recorded words in this whole initial encounter are just 4 words.
I am pregnant.
And those words change everything again. The affair is one thing, but this triggers the cover-up.
Exactly. And this is where sin really shows its nature. It's not just the act itself, it takes on a life of its own afterward. One scholar, Tim Keller, puts so well, after you've done a sin, the sin does you.
The sin does you, meaning it's not done with you once you've committed it.
Right. It has its own power, its own momentum. Its job is to trap you, to force you into more sin, more deception, to protect that first act. It's like that image of sin as a crouching animal ready to pounce.
And David feels that pounce. He panics when he gets Bathsheba's message. What does he do?
His first move is damage control. He calls Uriah, the Hittite Bathsheba's husband, and importantly, one of his own loyal elite soldiers back from the battlefront.
The plan being, Uriah comes home, sleeps with his wife, and everyone will assume the baby is his.
That's the idea. David even tries to make it seem casual, making small talk with Uriah about how the war is going, how Joab, the commander, is doing.
Just trying to act normal while setting up this deception.
But Uriah turns out to be more honorable than the king himself. He refuses to go home.
Why?
He says he can't possibly go enjoy the comforts of home, be with his wife, while his comrades, the Ark, Israel, Judah, they're all out camping in open fields. In the middle of a war, he sleeps at the palace entrance with the king's servants instead.
Wow. So Uriah's integrity, his loyalty to his men, completely messes up David's plan.
Completely. David even tries getting him drunk the next night, hoping that'll lower his inhibitions. But even drunk, Uriah refuses to go home. His honor holds.
David must be desperate now. The cover-up isn't working through manipulation or suggestion.
No. And so, backed into a corner by his own sin and Uriah's integrity, David turns to the ultimate abuse of his power. He decides on murder.
It's just chilling to read. He writes a letter.
He writes a letter to his general, Joab, and the instructions are explicit. Set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die.
And the most brutal part.
He gives the letter to Uriah to carry back to the front lines.
Uriah delivers his own death sentence, handed to him by his king.
Unknowing. Trusting. It's a profound betrayal. David, the shepherd king, orchestrates the murder of one of his loyal sheep to cover his own tracks.
He's forgotten everything. It's like total spiritual amnesia. The commandments, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, just gone.
Absolutely gone in the moment.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a deeper level the sources push us towards. It's not just about the external actions, the adultery, the murder.
There's something underneath it all.
Exactly. Jesus gets at this in the Sermon on the Mount. He takes the commandment about adultery and, like a surgeon, he cuts deeper than just the physical act.
Right, Matthew 5. He says something like, anyone who even looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery. Where?
In his heart.
Yeah.
In his heart. And that phrase, lustful intent, the Greek word is epithumio. It means more than just noticing someone as attractive. It's an over-desire, an out-of-control craving that I have to have that feeling.
That perfectly describes David on the roof, doesn't it? That immediate, unchecked desire.
It really does. And what Jesus is doing there, fundamentally, is showing us the root problem isn't just the external behavior, it's the internal state, the desire for control, for gratification, the entitlement that lives in the heart.
So he broadens the definition. It's not just the physical act.
No. By Jesus' standard, it includes our thoughts, our fantasies, maybe even in today's world, our clicking, our scrolling, our consumption of images. He reveals that the brokenness is deeper. In a way, he shows us we are all David. The potential for that same heart-level failure resides in all of us.
That's a tough truth, but it's also the point, isn't it? When we read this story, we recoil from David's actions, the betrayal, the murder.
As we should.
But the text forces us to see it as a mirror. We can't put our ultimate hope or trust in any human leader, no matter how gifted or successful, because even the best, like David, are deeply flawed. We are David.
And that failure has massive implications. Think about the end of the chapter. Uriah dies, Bathsheba mourns, David takes her as his wife, she has the son.
It
seems like he got away with it.
For a moment.
But then the narrator drops that final line. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. It hangs there. The kingdom, God's kingdom, is clearly not safe, even in the hands of this legendary king.
And that really drives home the ethical lesson about power. David had immense power, and he used it to serve himself, to wound, to exploit, ultimately to murder an innocent man just to protect himself.
Which sets up this powerful contrast that runs through the rest of the biblical narrative. How should power be used? David used it to condemn the innocent for his own sake.
Whereas the story points
Towards
towards
a different kind of king. One who doesn't abuse power, doesn't take advantage, but instead gives up his power, lays down his life for the guilty to cover our sin. David murders an innocent man to cover his sin. The better king is the innocent one who dies to cover ours.
there's that illustration about Abraham Lincoln. It seems relevant
Yeah, the
here.
Lincoln Memorial one. Yeah, it's a powerful analogy, though obviously on a human scale. After the Civil War, Lincoln had the power, and many urged him to punish the defeated South harshly.
Right, retribution.
But he chose a different path. His famous words, "with malice toward none, with charity for all," signaled a desire to use his power not to wound further, but to heal and reconcile. That's stewardship, the opposite of David's self-serving abuse.
Using power for mercy, not for self. What fuels that kind of leadership? It has to be more than just willpower.
Well, the sources suggest it's rooted in accountability, yes, but also in grace. Understanding your own capacity for failure, like David's, but also knowing there's forgiveness and restoration possible. That's the fuel.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's been pretty heavy exploring this dark chapter.
It really is. And sometimes the value is just sitting with the difficulty, letting the weight of it sink in, seeing the messiness of human failure, even in our heroes.
So, maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. We know that sin, especially secret sin, loses a lot of its power when it's brought into the light, into accountability.
So, reflecting on this story, where might you see traces of that David pattern in your own life? The isolation, the entitlement, the unchecked desire. What resistance, maybe transparency, maybe community, maybe just honest vulnerability. What do you need to build right now to make sure you're not, metaphorically speaking, staying home when you should be engaged in the battles that matter in your life, your work, and community?